Okay, morning everybody. We'll make a start. Sorry for the short delay. Welcome to Leicester Racecourse and to the Retailer Engagement Masterclass. My name's Andy Dean and I'm working with the Leicestershire Textile Hub team to deliver this masterclass for you today. My background's in engineering, and I did an engineering course at De Montfort University and subsequently something called Industrial and Business Systems, which was effectively a course for people who realised they didn't want to be engineers. I was more interested in business and making money than making bits. It was a great course at De Montfort. So I've got a combination of technical skills and commercial skills, and I've spent a lot of time in the manufacturing industry, predominantly doing product and process development, but also business development. I've worked across multiple industries, fast-moving consumer goods right through to aerospace, 15 years in manufacturing, and then the last 10 years I've spent in a consultancy business, working mainly with companies on technology-enabled growth, so businesses that want to grow and use technology as a vehicle to get there. My main driver, and why I was very interested to run this workshop, is that in the latter part of my career, I used some of the tools and techniques that I'm going to talk about today to create a brand new business model and start a business effectively from scratch within a very competitive market space. Not the textile sector, something completely different. But nevertheless, I think a lot of what I did will resonate with the challenges that you guys have got in what is a very competitive market space. Okay, so my role in this project with the Leicestershire Textiles Hub has been all about the retailer insight. When the hub was getting going, the guys that were setting it up talked to me and said, well, we need to get the end customer's perspective and the retailer's perspective. So that's what I did. I went out and talked to the retailers to understand what it is they want, and that's what I'm going to communicate to you today. The objectives then, as I see them, are to communicate the top level insight that I got from the retailers to you as manufacturers, understand what they want to see from suppliers, their existing suppliers and new suppliers, and then interpreting those needs. And then from that we'll try to understand what the real opportunities are for the UK and particularly Leicestershire-based suppliers. Then we'll look at how you can think about configuring your business to address these needs and what the retailers want. And are you ready, willing and able to engage with the retailers or not? We'll go through a logic-based process which will hopefully help you and be challenging. And we'll look at some tools and techniques that will help get yourself noticed and some top tips for promoting your business. So that's my objectives as I see them today to get information across to you. What I'd like to do now is get your objectives. You've given up half a day of your time to be here, so I'd just like, if I can, get a very quick overview from some individuals about what you want to get out of this, and hopefully we'll be able to tick all the boxes at the end of the session. So the insight from the retailers, for me this was quite a tough challenge, and overall I had a big mixed response when I went out to talk to them. Some of them were very inquisitive, a bit nervous when I said I want to talk to you about, your supply chain strategies and that type of thing. They thought I was a journalist. Some of them were very open. Okay, so we had a complete mixed set of responses. Some saying, yeah, definitely come down, really want to talk to you, sounds great, and the Leicestershire Textiles Hub sounds a great project. Others, less so. So the insight has come from a mix of retailers. This isn't all of them. Some were face-to-face interviews, some were telephone-based, and some were one or two quick emails. So it was a real big mix regarding how we got the information. The conclusions I've packaged up into these points, which is to say the door is open to UK suppliers. Nobody said, no, we don't want to talk to UK suppliers, but there's no strong desire to give them preferential treatment, was the overall message. So yeah, the door's open, come talk to us, we're an open industry, but we're not going to treat you any differently.
When would you like questions?
You can take questions, I'd prefer at the end, but if you have a real burning desire, then...
Very specific on that particular point, M&S and brand GB, that's one of their strongest selling products at the moment.
Yep.
So why, are they excluded from that statement, or is that just a general
This is a generic statement. There's one or two organisations who are quite pushy on brand GB for certain high value items, but this is an overall conclusion that we drew. Okay. The suppliers have got to add additional value. Okay, so there are no Me Too propositions. If you're just coming along doing something that everybody else is already doing without offering anything new or different, they're not interested because they haven't got the time and the money to validate new suppliers who aren't going to bring anything new. Okay, that was the core message. Now, I guess there'll always be evidence-based case studies where that isn't necessarily true, but that was the core message. And of course, the other conclusion was you've got to be prepared to meet their stringent basic gateway requirements. Cost is one, and of course, depending on where on the planet you're located, but also their ethical trading standards and their guidebooks and the things that they want suppliers to do. And they have said to me that, you know, all this information is available on our websites if you bother to look through and find the links and all the rest of it. So they were the key conclusions. What they're looking for as needs is a little bit more detailed. So there are cost targets, and some of them explain to me that these are regional. They don't expect that a manufacturer in the UK is going to have the same cost base as a manufacturer somewhere in Vietnam or Cambodia. Okay, this is the information they're giving to me. Quality standards are a given. You've got to be able to meet those. Ethical trading standards must be adhered to. So these are the sort of the gateway scenarios. Beyond that, we get a little bit more interesting. They want to hear from suppliers that bring something new and interesting to the party. They want suppliers that can innovate appropriately to the specific needs of retailers. Now, when I challenged them on this and said, well, what do you want? What do you mean by innovation? I was quite surprised that none of them were able to actually articulate what they want. So now I work in other industries where it's very clear. The automotive industry will come and say, this is what we want to do in the next 5 years. We've got these technical challenges, and these are the solutions that we need. The same in aerospace, the same in fast-moving consumer goods. When I talk to the textile retailers, they shrug their shoulders and they say, well, we don't know. That's our supplier's job. Oh, is it? Okay, interesting. So they are looking for you guys to be their innovation funnels and to be the bringer of new ideas. And that, for me, is where I think the opportunity lies, because they do not have people focusing on this themselves when I probe them. No, our lives are too busy. We're too busy focusing on next summer's range or whatever. We don't have innovation teams dreaming up what we want the products to do, which is quite interesting. They want to hear from suppliers who understand a retailer's brand and its values. So the key message there was, well, we're all put in the same pot as fashion retailers, but we are all very different and we have different values and our brands stand for different things. So we want to hear from suppliers that understand what we're about as an individual organisation. Then they got into more tactical things. They want high quality samples that are repeatable in high volume. This came up as a major problem. We get great samples, but when the multiples come along, we don't get the same product. And that was a key issue that was thrown back at me a lot. And then they want the visuals to go with it, so brand books as they call them, that they can then show colleagues, etc. Speed to market is becoming more and more important. They want stuff on the shelves quicker and quicker, and they want flexibility. If a product's moving fast and it's selling well, they want to be able to have more of it in 3 days' time. And equally, flexibility, if something's not selling, they don't want to be stuck with tens of thousands of items that they don't have to sell at a discount. So these are the really strong drivers. Anything that can bring enhanced consumer experience for the end customer. So what can you bring that gives the end consumer in their shop something new? Quite challenging. And finally, a key message was any kind of support that makes their working day easier. The message from these guys is they're all frantically busy, working on the next range, all the rest of it. They don't have 2 minutes to sit down and consider, new ideas, innovations, that type of thing. So anything that can be done from your perspective to make their life easier, and again, put that into context, they didn't give me specifics, was a key message. Okay? So, from that big list, my view is that the cost and the quality is a given. We have to do those, and meeting their ethical trading standards and their supplier manual handbooks, whatever, is a given. Other than that, for me, everything else on that list, there is opportunity there. We've just got to work out how to capitalise on it. Okay, and this will be a theme as we go through today. Right, so with that as a sort of a scene set, the challenge then is how do we configure the businesses and the manufacturing businesses that you all work in and run and own to capitalise on those opportunities. And what I'd like to do is think about a simple strategic approach to this, which starts with, well, right, where are we now then? We can benchmark ourselves against the retailer's needs, and that's important, benchmarking against the retailer's needs, not just your business in its totality, it's your business versus those needs. And we can do that through something like a SWOT analysis, which we'll get onto in a minute. And then think about where do we want to be. This is a more complex question, but what do you want to achieve? Can you put numbers on it? Is it growth in revenue and profit? Is it about expanding your customer base from 12 to 24? I don't know, but you can put it into some form of context.
Excuse me, can we get a copy of the slides, or should I be making notes?
No, we will make them available, yes. Yeah.
Only to remind me later on.
Yeah. There's an assumption that everybody in this room has a desire to supply the retailers to some degree as part of the growth. That's a bit of a given. And we can facilitate this through something called value stream mapping, which is an exercise we'll get onto over lunchtime. And then there's all right, well, we know where we are, we know what we want to do, but of course the how is a challenge. This is the difficult bit. So we'll look at a logical process to help you. Okay. Now, because of the time constraints today is more about showing you methodologies and what you could do to help yourselves rather than actually doing it in detail. If we had a whole day, 8 hours worth of masterclass, we could do a lot more detail on the how. This will hopefully give you some tips on things that you could be doing with your management teams back at site. So what I want to do is...
Sorry, I've got to go again.
Yeah.
Sorry. How about the technique of actually making an contact with the retailer?
Yeah, we'll get onto that.
Itself?
Yeah, we'll get onto that.
Oh,
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. Yep.
I'll let you get through your agenda.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's fine. What I want to do now is start with a SWOT analysis. Okay, so if some people might know what a SWOT analysis is, some people might not know. So apologise if I'm teaching you to suck eggs. Think about your business's strengths and think about it in the context of what those retailers' needs are. So strengths and also what your weaknesses are. As a business, what are you not very good at? Think about opportunities that you could capitalise on, relevant to needs of the retailers, and also the threats that you see your business is going to be faced with, either now or coming. So we've got on the tables some SWOT templates. If you could grab one each of those. And what I want you to do is individually think about your business and just try to populate that template. Okay, so we'll spend a few minutes doing that. And this will enable you to sort of benchmark your business against the retailer's needs. So if we spend a few minutes doing that, thinking about your individual business, and then what I want you to do is discuss your thoughts with a neighbour, so somebody next to you who will maybe challenge you on your thinking. Okay? So just take a few minutes to carry out this task. Okay, so I want to move on. Configuring your business to meet the retailer's needs. So I've got to assume there's a generic goal that you want to supply to the retailers, and obviously that's come up quite a bit on the objectives. So the big question is, all right, well, how can we make this happen? It's not easy. I'm just hearing conversations. It's definitely not an easy thing. And some of you might be thinking, well, it's a bit daunting, you know, I don't know where to start. If I've got to reconfigure my business then, to play in this arena because what I'm doing at the moment, quite frankly, isn't interesting enough for them. How am I going to do that? So the key messages at the moment is to really think about the existing strengths that you've got, okay? And if they've come out in the SWOT analysis and you've been challenged on them, you should know what they are. And then think about the weaknesses that you've got and be realistic and how can we address these. So what I want to introduce you to now, and some of you may have seen similar tools before, is a way of doing this and a tool that might help you do this, which helps you break down this mammoth task into much smaller chunks. And it's something called value stream mapping. What is a value stream mapping tool? So it's a tool taken from a methodology called Blue Ocean Strategy. And I don't know if anybody's heard of Blue Ocean Strategy, a great book which you can have a look at and write down if you're interested in it. But the whole objective of Blue Ocean Strategy is to help organisations conceptualise their services, focus on specifics for improvements relative to customer requirements. So what do I need to do in order to meet the changing needs of the customers? And the ethos is this lovely blue ocean, how to create uncontested market space and make competition irrelevant. Sounds fantastic, quite utopian, but it's about working on things that enable you to be substantially different from what everybody else does, so that you're attractive to your customers. And I mean, the best case study for me of this, of implementation of this, if anybody's into computer games, I'm not, but some of you with families will possibly know the Nintendo Wii. Yep. So if you think about gaming, it was a cluster of 18 to 30-year-olds stuck in their bedrooms with these very high-tech systems with lots of graphics and shooting and killing each other. Nintendo went through this process and they just came up with a completely disruptive model, the Nintendo Wii. Very simple graphics, totally inclusive, you know, all the family can participate. And they completely blew Sony out of the water with this theory and this product. And I guess some of you might have played on Nintendo Wiis. It's a fantastic case study for this methodology. There are plenty of others, but for me, that's the one that really sticks in my mind because I hate computer games, but I play the Nintendo Wii. I wouldn't go near any of the other high graphics ones that are always advertised on the TV. So there's something in that. And there are some great tools in this book, and we're going to tap into one or two of them today with Ria's help. Where's she gone? Right. So what we're going to ask you to do is think about a simple analysis about products and services that you offer compared to what the customers need. So we're going to break down your total offering, okay, and I'll explain what I mean in a minute. And then we're going to look at a simple methodology that says, well, what do I need to do? Some of those things I need to eliminate. Some of the things maybe I need to do more of, raise. Some of the things I'll do less, reduce. And then the challenging one, which is the one I really want you guys to think about today, is what are the things that I need to create? What are the new things that I don't do at the moment that I need to do in order to satisfy the needs of the customers? Okay, now that's quite challenging. Even thinking of what it is challenging, let alone the implementation, but we'll get on to that. So think about your relationships with retailers and their perception of your business. Okay, get that in your head. And then ultimately we'll think about what you can do to improve your value proposition to them, and we'll get into value propositions after lunch. So, step one, I want you to start to think about the product features that you have within your offering, within your businesses. So what are the things that we do? Okay, and I'm going to put up a couple of examples. And then from that, together, when Ria's captured all the information, we're going to discuss, debate, argue, and identify what the retailer's requirement is from sort of a low to high perspective. So this is going to be quite an interactive thing, which is why I want to run it over lunch, because we can have the opportunity to talk to each other. Post that, you need to, if you want to take this forward, of course, you'll need to be thinking about what you need to do about your offerings. Are there certain things within that portfolio of features and services and how does your business fit? So you've got to rank yourself from low to high. As I say, I'll show you the template, and then think about where you are now and think about where you need to be in the future in order to meet the needs of the retailers. So it sounds complex, but it's quite logical. And as I've said before, particularly think about creating new things based on the retailer's needs. So step one, start to think about your current features and services that you offer. I just want to capture a list, so if you can just write them down on the back of a SWOT analysis or something, start to think about the features and the services that you offer now, okay? And then we'll have some lunch in a bit, and then we'll capture all the information. We'll do what we did before. We'll go around the room and we'll build up a portfolio. How we're going to capture it is quite simple. We'll have all the features that you guys come up with along the bottom, and then we'll talk about the retailer's needs in terms of high, medium or low. So for example, I've put lead time down there as an example. I'm just talking about lead time. So short lead times is possibly a good thing for the retailers, okay? How important is that to the retailers? We think it's quite high. What you'll then do is think about your company. Where are you at the moment? Well, if you're down here, well, there's an opportunity, isn't there? That's something you could focus on to increase your offering to the retailers and put it into perspective about your company in the future. And what happens is when you start to build up all your features and services down here, you build up a profile, and you can start to think about your business and see your business, where it is now, what it needs to do to change, or where it needs to be, and then what it needs to do to change we can think about. So that's a task. Start to think about it now. I'm hoping that lunch should be coming in at 1 o'clock, because that's what the organisers said. And the idea is that you can discuss this amongst yourselves, have some lunch, and then about 1:30 we'll sit down and start to capture all the information and enter into a bit of a debate. So a bit of work for you to do, I'm afraid, but hopefully we'll get some value out of it. Okay, so get your thinking caps on. It can be as broad as you want, because we'll end up with a bit of repetition, and the whole idea is we can put it on the grid at the back, and Ria will capture it all. What we're going to focus on now is pulling together some of your product features and services to your customers on our value stream map that Ria's going to facilitate. So what I'd like to do is literally work around the room, ideally grabbing one product, service or feature from each person, and obviously as we go around the room the harder it gets because the obvious ones would have gone. We want to try to think about new offerings as well. So I guess what will happen is what you're already doing, it's quite easy to think about that, but we need to capture them. The focus and the challenge is to think and discuss what we could do in future that we're not doing now, okay? So if I start, we went that way this time, so I'll start going around this way. So what's a product, feature or service that you've got in your business that is easy to describe and goes to customers?
Literally got a new product, but as a fashion accessory.
Okay.
To go alongside garments and other things that may be sold into the marketplace.
Okay, so fashion accessories complementary to garments.
Yes.
Okay. Good start. Yourself? Same business?
Same partnership, yeah.
Right, okay. Yourself?
I don't know if I had anything to offer as a business, but I'd probably say ethical trade guidance is what we could offer. I'm not a manufacturer.
Okay.
I don't have a product to give, but all this could apply to what we do.
Okay, well, we'll capture it.
Yeah.
Be interested to see how we can apply that then maybe to as a service that manufacturers could offer. I'm not sure, but let's get it down.
So what was that saying?
Ethical trading guidance. Yeah. Yourself?
We can offer washing techniques.
Washing techniques. Okay, I'm pleased someone's come up with that one because that was a big part for Fat Face. Washing techniques. And are you talking about to the garments before they're sold on the shelves?
Correct.
Yep. Next one.
I think just probably like
Well, really just a fast route to market, quick turnaround.
So short lead time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exchange.
Yep.
Yeah, changing designs, samples,
Change.
changing design. We can move the styles around quickly for them. We can alter the styles, designs.
So is that design flexibility or speed? Design flexibility.
We're UK based.
Yep.
You know, 90 miles from London.
Yep. Okay.
At the time.
Oh, we'll go this way round. Have you got that, Ria?
Yeah.
Yep. You guys?
Basically, yeah, fast lead time, so well under pressure. So if there want any adjustments done like on a day's notice or 2 days notice, we can sort of adapt that.
Okay. So is that on quantity?
On certain quantities, yeah. So basically, if they want, I don't know, for instance, relabelling or they want some kind of
Right.
There's little components to the business that can be done locally. For instance, we've had fencing or embroidery. We sort of outsource that within the actual network.
Okay. So do we call that quantity flexibility?
Flexibility and sort of being able to adapt to what any product they want. So big words, alter designs based on the
Okay. So it's design flexibility, quantity flexibility.
production lead time. So
Yeah. So we've got lead times. Yeah. Okay.
We offer a research and development team.
Ah, great. Okay. So you've got R&D services. Brilliant.
We've got an in-house designer as well. So
Yep. In-house designer and R&D. Okay.
Myself is actually very similar to Jason.
Same company. Okay. Difficult question for you. Difficult question for you. Right. This is mainly focused on the manufacturers. Yourself, sir?
Well, to develop a business generally, I've capacity to expand if I wish to. We just want some new customers.
Okay, but your service offering is flexibility to expand. So if all of a sudden somebody comes to you with a 10 million skirt order, you can do it. Is that what you're saying?
We have a limited range. I don't compete in the ordinary textile market.
Right.
I've built machines that are different to make specialist products in order to avoid the competition that there is in the general trade.
Okay, so you're offering niche specialities?
Absolutely.
Niche,
yeah.
okay, yeah. Yourself?
Online ordering service which provides the retailers transparency in their supply chain.
Okay, so online ordering service.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not just, we are a packaging company, it's not just packaging. If they use our online ordering system, for example, they also can see the other products as well.
Yeah.
Which they buy from other companies like buttons, like zips and other things as well. So.
Right. How do we package that up into? You've got online ordering service, and then what's? I don't understand what that is. That a complementary offering then that they can see other suppliers? Is that what you're saying?
It's not just bespoke to us. We're allowing our competitors to also retailers. Our competitors
right.
can use the same online ordering system, so they can view all of their
So
products
it's our
on the
partner.
one online.
Right.
It's not.
Okay. So for multiple suppliers. Okay. Have you got that? I'm just trying to think how to package it up, Ria, into 3 words. Well, just call. We know what we mean.
Online ordering system.
Online.
Online ordering.
Yeah. Yourself?
New design flexibility and quantity flexibility.
Okay. So back to design,
Yeah.
capability and quantity flexibility. Okay. Yep. Got that. Next table.
Quick sampling as well. We've got our own in-house technicians, so we can sample within a day or so.
1 day sampling. Okay.
And we can source fabrics for designers.
You can fabric sourcing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can do it for the designers rather than having to do it in-house themselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're from the same company, but
Yeah.
we do fully factored, so we can do from the designs and the specs through to manufacture, so all in one factory.
Would we call that a turnkey? I'd call that a turnkey in a different industry, but
We call
Yeah.
it fully factored.
sorry,
We call it fully factored.
fully factored.
Yeah.
Okay,
Fully factored production.
fully factored. But I guess everybody understands what that means. Yeah.
We can offer new machinery, a variety of different machines, so a variety of products. We do knitwear, so we've got updated machinery.
Okay. Okay. So you're using the latest
Yeah.
machinery? Because it's the Germans and the Japanese, is my understanding, and the big. Okay, all right. So high-tech machinery for knitwear. Yeah.
The design, my designs on my bags, and also the whole packaging from the bag, dust bag, tissue paper, the whole box and everything.
So including point of sale.
Yeah.
Okay, so that takes that problem away for them. It's your bag in your own bespoke design packaging. It's ready to go off the shelf. Okay. This table?
Most of them have already been covered. The two ones we thought of was quantity, so we can do small to large quantity depending on mixtures.
Okay, can you define that at all?
Well, there's a certain limit in terms of what we can go to, but
Yeah.
I suppose we can sell it as one of the services so they know what we can
Yeah.
sort of do. And then workforce, so experienced and trained workforce
Okay.
is one of our.
Okay, so
selling.
so we'll put that up as a skilled, highly skilled workforce as a product offering that's attractive, should be attractive to them.
Yeah, and the other aspects have already been covered, so things like lead times, technology,
Yeah.
etc.
Okay. Yourself?
The only other thing that I can think that hasn't been covered as yet, because we deal in all of Europe, we've got a big team of multilingual salespeople.
Right. Okay.
So it's easier to actually.
Yep.
And that's,
Okay. Multilingual business. Yep. Okay.
It provides us with a better understanding of different countries in the European market.
Yep. And the cultures and all the rest of it. Yep. Okay. Yourself?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Research and development and innovative design.
Okay. So we've got that covered.
Yeah.
Good. Yourself?
It's quality, quick turnarounds.
Quality. Okay. So quality in terms of, can you sort of put that into a context? You can meet all their quality standards, or?
ETI,
Yeah. Okay. So quality standards. Yeah. All right. So we've got a lot of features and services that you do now. We just need to think now how important these offerings are to the retailers. Yeah. High, medium, or low. So where we started, shout them out, and then we'll have a quick view on if it's important to them or not.
Okay.
And you need to get your pen out and stick a blob on.
I will do.
Yep.
So fashion accessories that complement garments.
Is that important to retailers or not? Sounds quite good to me. Yeah.
Depends on the brand. If you're Apple, it's very important.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah. Okay. So retailer specific, but overall, there could be something in it.
There's a cross-sell, there has to be
Yeah.
a cross-sell.
Okay. Medium-ish then?
Medium high.
Yeah.
But, the crux of the matter is, what are retailers interested in? Retailers are interested in making money.
Yes.
Right? That's it.
Yeah.
They're not interested in whether these boys and girls survive. They're interested in money.
Making money, yeah.
And the more opportunities we provide for them to make money,
Yeah.
and the other side of that is about the risk mitigation, potentially.
Okay.
If you've got a wider supply,
Okay.
they might not be so keen to lose.
Right. Okay. Let's keep working through. Next.
So design
Medium.
foresight.
So the design foresight. Does everyone agree design foresight is important or not? Okay, great. Get it up there.
Okay, ethical trading guidance.
So that was yours, wasn't it? So
Well, as you said from the get-go, that's an automatic. You need to be compliant, so it has. So
but
If
you
you're not ethically compliant,
you don't get the job. Yeah.
so you have
number 10.
you have
Yeah.
to have it.
You have to have it. Yeah.
What that means in terms of what's actually being done is a different question.
Yes.
But on paper, you have to have
Yeah.
it.
So you need to be able to tick that box. It's got to be up there. Ethical compliance, it has to be at the highest level. Yeah. Okay.
So taking all the risk.
Yeah. So this is just putting this into context. So the value proposition is you're going to say, well, we'll take all the risk. Is that, which seems.
You'll go bust.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's been happening since year dot.
Yeah. So in terms of a retailer's need, they would love you to take all the risks. So as a retailer need, it's quite high. Whether you're going to offer it's a different thing. Yeah.
Washing techniques.
Views? Okay, so for me, it's one specific retailer I spoke to. It was their biggest issue, but it was very specific. It's fat face.
Using natural fibres.
Yeah.
Washing skin with natural fibres. We don't do any.
Yeah.
Natural fibres in Leicester.
So I think for me, it came up with one specifically, but it's not. It's a niche thing. Yeah. So it's not very high, Ria.
Finance facility.
They would love it, wouldn't they? If they, yeah, they would love it if you're prepared to fund everything. Of course they would. Yeah. Whether you're going to offer it, it's a different thing.
Short lead times.
Short lead times. High.
Standard.
And it's just then you've got to define short. Is it 3 days? Is it 7 days? Different contexts. Okay, so it's high. Keep going.
Okay, technical fabrics.
Not jumping out.
People are developing. I think you just need to be in the remit of working with universities and stuff quite closely. The thing is, I think there needs to
Let's not get into the how we do it. Are they going to value it? Now, the only people I think value it are people like Henry Lloyd.
not even them.
Yeah.
There's other markets.
Yeah, there's other markets. So these guys, it's not that interesting to them. Yeah.
Really? I would have said innovation. If we're going to do innovation, then isn't it going to come from the fabrics?
Potentially, yeah. Yeah.
Design flexibility.
Very important. Yeah.
Quantity flexibility.
Yeah, high.
R&D services.
Are they going to come to you as a preferred supplier because you've got an R&D facility, the high street retailers? I think the technical, the performance companies, people making sailing gear and outdoor wear, maybe.
Market, really.
Yeah, it's quite specific. Yeah.
Price is the main.
Yeah. So I think for the high street retailers, that's probably not that interesting for them. They want to see the results of it. That they are interested in, but
In-house designer.
yeah.
Niche specialities.
Thoughts? Again, I think that's very specific to certain retailers, and more to the guys you're talking about, your mid caps. But up to be challenged.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. Online ordering service.
Interesting. Can you?
Transparency, really. Find out where your orders are. You can go online and
Yeah.
check that it's come from the right factories, counterfeiting, etc. So
Okay.
having that kind of service is quite important.
Sounds to me like something really good,
Yeah.
but you guys know the industry.
To our market,
Full
Yeah.
transparency of the supply chain is
Okay, great. So it's a high.
One-day sampling.
It was all about flexibility and speed to market was the big message. So I would imagine that's sought after.
Fabric sourcing.
Do they rely on you guys to do that, or do they like to source the fabrics themselves? Bit of both. Okay. Okay. So that's quite high then.
Okay. Fully factored production.
I think it's high. Yeah. A designer can come to us and we can do everything for them.
Yeah.
So it's less hassle to them.
Great. So that's your turnkey solution. All they got to do is decide how many they want and what they want, and you just do everything.
Yeah.
Sounds quite good if I was a buyer.
So
Agree or not? Is that the view? I mean, one of the big messages was anything that you can do that makes our life easier was on their needs list, and sounds to me like you're doing exactly that. Brilliant. Okay.
Okay, so latest machinery, latest technology.
High.
Yep.
You can offer them new things.
Yep.
Ready to go, all packaged.
So that's back to your turnkey solution, is it? Similar thing. Okay. All right. So we've got, is that it, Ria, or are there any more?
No, there's another 4.
Okay, go on quickly, sorry. Do they value the skilled workforce?
Yeah.
Yep. Good.
Okay. Quality standards.
Yeah. They want. It's got to be standard, otherwise you can't have it.
Multilingual business.
It's obviously high for us because we've sort of done really well in the UK and then we're expanding into Europe.
Okay.
So
What about the rest?
important for us.
Okay. Anybody else think that that's an important asset?
Yeah, I think it's quite a good one because we're looking to expand, so it'd be good to have like multilingual staff.
Okay. Great. It's good.
Innovation, forward thinking.
What's the views on that?
If you don't do that, you might be hit with it. Like, you've got to keep forward thinking.
Yeah.
If you don't,
Yeah.
whether you're doing fast fashion for new look or
Yeah.
Primark, you still got to be fast
Yeah.
forward thinking.
The key going.
That's attain.
The key message was they want it. They just don't know what they want, which is really hard to then come up with solutions. But they see that as the job of the.
The sweater comfortable or a jersey where it's saying yes, I like that, we'll buy it. That's all they want. They don't
Yeah.
care about behind.
Yeah.
All they want to see on their desk on a Monday
Yeah.
morning or Tuesday. is a
Make it
sweater.
easy for me.
Make it easy. Just
Make it
go
easy
like,
for
I
me.
like that. It's
Yeah.
in fashion or it's. They don't care about behind things. As long as like,
Yeah.
it's ethically approved and it's on the form.
Yeah.
We're away.
Okay, so going back to this lady's offering, where she says we can do everything for you, and you just end up with the end product on your desk. Fantastic.
You can't do any more.
No. Okay. Well, I mean, the innovation thing really is quite difficult because it is very retailer specific again. But they want it, they just don't know what they want. So yeah.
And then the last one is understanding brands and values of the retailer.
So the supplier's understanding of their brand and values. Yeah. It can have a big negative impact if you don't do your research. That message came out strongly. Okay. So what we would have built up there, we can take a photo of this and get it out to people, is sort of a profile of what the retailer's needs are versus the suite of offerings, okay? What I would then encourage you guys to do in your own time, and we can make this available, is to think about your offering now. These are all these product features that we've come up with. This is what the retailers want, and we've ranked them high to low. Where are you? How is your business set up to offer those things? And what else could I do that's different? I know we're struggling a bit with new things, but that's where the real opportunity is. So think about your future offering, where you are now, and then think about, well, okay, I really like this idea of this whole turnkey thing. Maybe I need to do something with my business that enables me to do that. I don't know. But that's the kind of the thought pattern that we've got to get into. You'll be able to see how your service offerings are with respect to the retailer's requirements, and then where your aspirational changes can have the most impact and be most effective. You can actually start to think about decisions on things that you should do in order to meet their needs. But again, take away the rose-tinted spectacles. We've got to be realistic, and we'll get on to the investment and everything else that's required in a bit. The management decisions then need to take place so that you can decide what you need to do to be more attractive to the retailers. And this is obviously where the tough decisions come in. And in order to help do that, once you've got your profile, you can think about what it is that you need to do with your business to flex it to meet the needs. Okay, so we go back to our ERRC grid. What do we need to stop doing? Because there's just no value. What's the point? They don't value it, and I'm spending time and money and effort doing this thing that's not valued. Let's forget it. What do we need to reduce? What do we need to do more of? And then finally, what are the new things that I need to do in order to put myself above the many others? Okay, so it's a simple tool that you can think about with that profiling tool. Once you've got to that stage, we can do a quick recap. We've looked at strengths and weaknesses. We've looked at what we currently offer and how it fits with the retailer's needs. And we've got some ideas on clarity on what we could actually do to put ourselves in a better perspective with the retailers using that tool. Yeah, lovely theory, but what about implementation, which is getting onto your subject, sir. So it's great theory. We can sit around table and dream up all these ideas, but how do we make it happen? the message for me is we've got to make a plan now. If we're going to decide to do something different, we've got to think about what we're going to do, why we're doing it, who's going to be doing it, and how it's going to be done, okay? And this is where the business needs to look into, well, have I got the right resources? Have I got the right people? Talking about your skills issue. Can I formulate a business case that actually justifies any of this investment? Okay, so if I'm going to change my business, I'm going to have to do some new things. I'm going to have to spend some money, maybe on people, resources, equipment, whatever. And what's my return on investment going to be? You've got to understand, or got to have an inkling that if you do this new stuff, which is going to be expensive, going to take up time, am I going to get a payback on it? Okay, so these are the management decisions that you as the businesses have got to think about if you're going to go down this road. Tough decisions need to be made, okay, but they're going to have to be made. We'll get into another tool I like to use in a minute, a business model canvas of sort of getting into one picture how everything needs to happen. And at this stage, there is opportunity to tap into external help, external resources, financially and people. There's a presentation in the Cube over the road at 3:30 from a chap called Corin Crane, who's a director of the LEP. I don't know if you know him, I don't. But he's going to be talking about the sort of, sorry, there's some giggles going on there. Is that okay? Do we know him? No? Yeah, okay. So there's some help out there is the message. Go listen to what they've got to say at 3:30 and maybe there'll be something there for you. So the business model canvas template is something I like to use just for conceptualizing what a new plan might look like. So I don't know if you've seen these before. You can grab this off the internet if you put business model canvas in. It's a simple tool and it just helps you put into context what you're trying to do and why you're trying to doing it. Okay, you can think about the new clients you want to get on board. You can start to think about your relationships with them, how you want to move forwards with them. At the moment, if it's completely transactional, how you're going to get into a partnership type arrangement. Sales channels, different revenue streams that you'll be thinking about. So it's garments, and now the next thing is, well, we're building accessories into our range as well, whatever. And then what the key activities are that you need to do to make it all happen. Key partners that you might need to work with, because at the moment you're thinking, well, I want to do these things, but I don't have the in-house skills, capability, time. Are there partners that I need to engage with that can help me do what I want to do? And then, of course, some cost structure type analysis, going back to the return on investment. What have I got to put in and what am I going to get out at the end of it? So, as I said, this is on the internet, widely available. It's a great tool just for capturing everything in terms of what you want to do with your business. And then we need to plan. We need to create a detailed plan based on SMART principles. So you've got to decide what you're going to do. That translates into specific actions. Okay, it can all be quite generic. What am I actually going to do to make this happen? I need to think of some specific things that I can then measure to check my progress. They've got to be realistic. Okay, we don't want to set ourselves impossible goals because that's just disheartening and doesn't help anybody. And they need to be relevant to the business and what I'm trying to do. And most importantly, they need to be time bound so that you can actually have a plan, understand how you're doing, and measure your progress. And then, of course, with that plan, we've then got to understand what we're going to do, how we're doing against it. We need to check what we're doing and then act. If things are going wrong or if things are going really well, do we need to change tack? In this sort of thing, you've got to have somebody with project management skills. So I don't know if that's something in the business that you already have or something you would have to look for. It might not be you, it might be somebody within your team, it might be a junior person, but get somebody who's organised, who can run projects to do this type of stuff. Okay. Now we're going to get into some tools and techniques to help you get yourself noticed. So this is a promotion message that came back from the retailers. When I spoke to the retailers, they were out of touch with Leicestershire and a lot of the UK as well, in terms of, we don't know what you guys do anymore. And this was a quote from a chap called Michael Fearston, who's a board director at Mothercare. When I went to see him, He said, I get 20 emails a week, or a month, sorry, from global suppliers promoting themselves, and I can't recall the last one from the UK. Now, it's not to say he's not getting them. The message there is the recall bit. There's nothing jumping out at him from these emails that was interesting enough for him to recall something from a UK manufacturer, which I was quite depressed about, really. They get a lot of approaches, mainly on the email from overseas. He said, I can't remember the last UK one. So we've got to think about what we can do to get ourselves noticed, okay, with these guys as the first port of call. So we're going to talk about how we can help you to stand out from the crowd. So let's get back to what the retailers said. We've lost touch with the UK supply base, and particularly Leicestershire-based suppliers. We don't know the current capabilities of Leicestershire suppliers. Some of them who've been in the industry a long time recall a little bit of the history, but there's lots of younger people in the industry now, in these retailers, who don't know what it was like in the 1980s. So they had no idea about what you guys can do. They do recall the negative things. They're very good at that. If they read something negative about the area or about the industry, they can always recapture that far more easily than they can recall the positives. But the overriding message was, yeah, we're interested. As we said all along, the door is open. We want to hear what the UK and Leicestershire can do, but we just don't hear from you. So, going back to the opportunities arising, just refreshing ourselves on that. What can we do to actually promote ourselves to the retailers? This came up on the board, I think, the approach. One of the big messages was about preparation, okay, and somebody's just mentioned it now. I think Ria was saying that if you go to them with the wrong product offering, they not necessarily an insult, but it's not going to do you any favours, okay. This was a really big message that we need people that understand our brand and its values. We're all sort of put together in this pot as high street retailers, but we're all different and we've all got a very different message. Okay, and some of you may have a great understanding of what those is. I don't. But the message for them is you need to go and do your homework, guys, on what's important to us. And from that, you need to come with your value proposition to us. Think about the approach. Have your samples and your brand books, which we've talked about, and be prepared ultimately for meeting with us. Okay, so that's what they want to hear about. So if we just look at this, suppliers who understand our brand and its values, what can you do to really understand what they stand for? Invest time into understanding each retailer. The message for them was get out, get into our shops and understand what we're about. Now, I don't know, do you guys do comparative shopping trips and things like that? Do you get into the stores? Yeah, a lot.
Page one of what we do.
Yeah, okay.
Good design should do that anyway.
Yeah, but back to perception, perception isn't always reality. This is the message from them. You guys need to get out and understand our brand and its values. So maybe it's the translation of that into what they want where there's an issue. If you're doing it, great. How often are you doing this? Is this a monthly thing?
Weekly.
Weekly. Is that pretty much the norm? Yeah. Yeah, okay, so it's regular. Okay, right, let's just move on. So, what do they do poorly, and can you help them address deficiencies? Okay, and the reason I've put invest time in gold mining for the right contacts below that is, if you understand these retailers and their brands, and you tell me you do, and you say, right, well, we understand what M&S does well, and we understand what they don't do well. Okay, and it might be they've really got a handle on ladies' wear and they're brilliant at it, but their kids' wear is rubbish. Okay, now I don't know, I'm just using hypothetics here. How do you then tackle that? And I think, investing time, I call it gold mining for the right contact. It's about finding the right people in these huge organisations to interact with. And if it is the kidswear element of M&S that's rubbish, find the kidswear people, okay? And don't be afraid to voice your opinion. It shows you've done your homework. They might argue, but if you go to them and say, I've been spending a lot of time, looking at your brand and your values and all the rest of it, and I think your menswear and your ladieswear is nailed on, but your kidswear compared to, Next and Mothercare is diabolical, and I can help you by this is what I can do for you. Now, all right, they might be a little bit startled, but I imagine that you would get their ear if you had a compelling reason to get that message across, okay? Some of them might be deeply insulted, I don't know, but if somebody's invested that time and can go and say, I've done a lot of work and I've really been looking at your brand and what it stands for, give me half an hour, okay, I'm interested. But you've got to invest the time in talking into the right people and finding out the right people, which we'll get into. And in order to do that, you've got to have what I call your compelling, your value proposition, why they should bother listening to you in the first place, okay? And why they are going to remember the email that you sent in amongst the 20 a month that Mr. Fearston gets, okay? So he says, yeah, I remember I got this email from this company in the UK. God, it was something really interesting about it. And the other 19 that he got in that month that he just doesn't remember. Now, that's the challenge, okay? What's a value proposition? A business or marketing statement that summarises why a consumer should buy a product or use a service in its simple terms. And that simple statement should convince the consumer that they should buy your product, okay? Again, a bit of theory, but that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give them something that stands out that they remember. How do we create this message? Firstly, we've got to understand what their true pain is. Now, going back to the statements I just said before, companies want to do lots of things, and you can break them down into aspirational things that they want to do because they're fun and interesting, but that's not going to win you the business. You've got to address their true pain. If you can see that their kidswear is going down the Swanee and they're losing sales week on week to the competition, and you recognise that and you could do something to help them, they might listen. Okay, they're far more likely to listen if it's a true pain-related discussion than if it's something purely aspirational that they just want to do because it's fun and exciting. And believe me, I've been there. I've spent a lot of time talking to people about aspirational projects and new product development that never go anywhere because it's just something in somebody's mind and it's a pet project. It's never going to get financed. But true pain is what you've got to tap into, and that takes time and effort to understand what it is. Then you've got to be able to relate these to your product services, going back to all the things on our chart there. That's your problem, Mr. So-and-so, and this is how I can help because this is what my business does. And that's how we're going to help you remove your pain. Oh, how are you going to do that then? Then you've got to be able to translate what you do into benefits for them. And ideally, if you can quantify, well, we'll help you get your kidswear sales up by 10% by the end of 2016 or whatever. These are the sorts of things that will get the mindsets buzzing. So it seems simple, but getting it into the right context is essential for dealing with people because it becomes a key sort of tool for your approach. And then going back to the needs of different retailers, it's not a one-size-fits-all. You've got to be able to flex this value proposition that your business is going to do in order to meet the specific needs of different retailers or maybe different departments inside the same retailers. These are big organisations and quite often the departments don't interact. So these are all the sorts of things that we need to be thinking about. You can use your value stream mapping tool to help conceptualise your offering and really work out what it is that you do really well, that they're going to value and that makes you guys stand out from the crowd so that when you send that first approach email in, it's remembered by Mr. Fearston. Okay, so how do we do that? Value proposition, like products, has got features. It's got specific details about the product or service that you're going to offer, okay? And we've talked about some of those on that value stream map. From that, you can start to talk about promises that you're going to give to these retailers, that if they engage with you and buy your services, that's what you can do for them. And in doing that, this is the type of pain relief that you're going to give to them. It might be to do with their revenues, their margins, their profits, their reputation, or whatever. But you understand what it is that they want to, the issues that they've got to address. And then finally, what are the benefits from a promise list that relates specifically to that retailer? So the whole thing ties together. You understand their problem and their pain, you can describe what you can do about it, and you understand how it'll help them improve their situation. Okay, in terms of putting that all together, there's a very simple way that you can structure this, pretty much as I've just said. You've got to be able to describe their business issue, quantify it if you can, and then describe the benefits that you'll bring to them through the things that you're going to do for them. In an ideal situation, you'll be able to articulate what the cost might be. Not always possible, but in some ways you might be able to do this. And even better, if they've got to spend money, any type of return on their investment. If you think that spending some money with you will help their sales increase tenfold or whatever, you can articulate this sort of information. So we get a value proposition, but then there's always going to be different scenarios about how you interact with these organisations. I like to break it down into three areas. The first being what we would call the elevator pitch, if people are familiar with the terminology. If you've got a quick 30 seconds with somebody and they say, oh great, what are you doing for that company? You can bang it out and say, I do this for them. I'm working in the chocolate sector at the moment. Oh, what are you doing in the chocolate sector? That sounds really interesting. Well, I'm helping one of the biggest chocolate manufacturers in the world get its cocoa yield up by tenfold and increase the dollars per head earnings for cocoa farmers. Sounds really interesting. It is. There's a lot to it. But in 30 seconds, you can articulate to somebody what you're doing. Then you've got to be able to put a little bit more detail so that when you're approaching somebody, either through a letter or a phone call, you can articulate to them in a little bit more time what you're actually doing with a little bit more detail about some of the ways you might be delivering that expertise or service to them. And then finally, you need to have a value proposition that's very detailed, all-encompassing, so that when you get that meeting and their undivided attention, which is what you want, you can articulate in an hour or whatever they've given you what you can do for them and how you're going to do it. Okay? So your value proposition is critical. You've got to be able to break it down into small, medium, and large way of delivering it. What I was thinking about was perhaps creating one, but I think we're going to skip over this today because I think it's going to be a little bit complicated. What I'd rather do is just go away with that thought in your mind, because I think until you've done more work on what your product offerings are, this is going to be quite difficult to do. So I think we'll skip over this. The approach to the companies, approach came up on the objectives for today. One of the challenges is getting in front of the right person in the retailers, as I understand, and the fact that the people are turning over quite quickly is one of the key challenges. So the approach there would be, well, you've got to have multiple contacts in the business, especially if you're dealing with different departments. And you might have designers as contacts and technologists as contacts. That's what you want to do. It's really useful to build up an approach of having multiple contacts, because quite frankly, they'll all give you different perspectives on the world anyway. Technologists will give you very different perspectives than buyers, I would imagine. Buyers want to know everything about the pricing. Technologists will want to know that everything's safe, meets the quality standards and all the rest of it. Okay, so people in the businesses have got different drivers. Another message that came out from talking to the retailers was, don't give up. If you can't get hold of us or we don't come back to you the first time, yeah, we're all busy people. This is, for me, standard sort of sales and business development stuff anyway. If you don't get through it the first go, you've got to keep going. It might be seven approaches, I don't know. We talk about 7 touch points in order to get through and engage with the right people, which is time consuming. A key message that came out from one speaker I saw, they value that tenacity. If they can see that you're prepared to keep going and going and going as a supplier to talk to that specific person, there's value in that. It shows that you're serious and that you really want to deal with them. I heard a lot of people at the conference say, well, I sent you an email 3 months ago and I haven't heard anything back. You know, well, come on, be real. These guys are busy. And you've got to put the effort in trying to talk to the right people time to time. And it's not easy, but that was the key message. Now, I don't know how easy you find it to get through to the right people, if it's simple or not. I struggled doing the retailer insight. You know, people didn't come back to me immediately. Hi, I'm Andy Dean from the Leicestershire Textiles Hub and I want to talk to you about this project that we've got running. No, they didn't ring me back. It took time to get my message across. I had to create a value proposition to them in order to get them interested enough to want to talk to me. And to get a 2-hour slot with the main board director in the retailers, it's quite hard work. It took 3 months to get most of these meetings from start to finish. So I know what it's like. Another key message is be prepared about your objectives and the key messages for the first communication. So when you do get to speak to the right person, what is it you want to do? You want to deliver your value proposition. You want to get an appointment with them. You want to get their undivided attention for an hour or half an hour, whatever they're prepared to give. You don't want to sell to them on the phone. Okay, and this is where a lot of people go wrong. They want to, oh great, I've got hold of so-and-so, bang, and they start downloading all the information and how wonderful the company is and this and that and the other. That's not what you want. You want a slot with them. That's all you want from that first telephone conversation. Okay, so be focused on what it is that you want out of each interaction. Multiple contact points. We've said finding the right person in large organisations is critical. And I'll go back to my gold mining model. Trying to find the right person in the right department is worth the invested time. Do you guys use LinkedIn? Everybody using LinkedIn? How do you find it? All right, yeah.
Never always up to date.
Never always up to date. But in terms of...
It's also hard to get viruses in it when I've moved to Jersey where I was
Yeah, yeah.
never quite keep up to date, but it's a starting point.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'm similar things myself. It's great. I mean, this wasn't around 10 years ago, but it was a way of finding out who's in what positions in companies. It's really useful. If you're not using it, then it's a great place to start. The reason for that is I found that when you're talking to the retailers and trying to get to speak to people, if you just phone up asking, can I speak to the buying director in ladies wear, they don't want to know you. If you ring up and say, I want to speak to Fred Bloggs, oh yeah, hold on, I'll just put you through. I couldn't believe it. I mean, you don't get that in other industries. In automotive and aerospace, it's far harder to get through. These guys, the door's open, and they said that to me all along. You know, yeah, we do want to talk to suppliers. So I found that quite interesting. Once you've got the names of people in positions, you can get through to them. Now, I don't know if that's your experiences, but that was mine, okay? So use LinkedIn. There you go, there's a couple of examples. That's the type of information from a couple of minutes on LinkedIn. You start to find names of people in organisations, you can ring them up and ask them. Okay, the next thing about the approaches and the retailer's needs was high quality samples that are repeatable in volume and having the graphics and the brand books to go with it. This is very important to them. Obviously, it's a touchy-feely industry, and this is what they wanted to see. So if you're lucky enough to meet the right person and get the appointment, you've got to have these assets. Now, one of the major challenges that's come up in some of the conferences I've been to is people talking about the investment required in samples and what you've actually got to spend to create these samples, quite often with no guarantees of any orders at the end of it. So I just wanted to put that around and see, is that a massive problem, massive investment for you? What can you? Yeah, so for every sample you're producing, you're...
Well, I mean, I don't know about other people, because I can always talk, you know, if we make 20 samples for a client,
Yeah.
years ago you probably got 10 years ago, nowadays you might get 1 or 2 now. I think the percentages dropped down so much because they get so much thrown at them.
Okay.
So the returns rate isn't as good as it used to be for sample. But if you don't sample, you're not in a ball game. You're finished.
And are you taking the samples with you to meetings, or are you sending them samples in?
Like you said, you've got
Yep.
you got to go down and see the people you sample.
You have to, yeah. Yeah.
They never come to Leicester. They're very rarely anyone.
Yeah.
So you've got to go down with your sample packs. And we always say the best is to take the physical things down with you to show what you make.
Yeah.
When they do take the time and effort to come and see you, that means they're serious.
Yeah, which is a great message. Yeah.
That's when you know there's an order on the table. You know, if they can make that effort to come and see you,
Yeah.
then they're definitely serious.
Okay.
You know, if they just want you to go to them every time, then they're not trying. They're not really.
I never see the full picture, do they, of what you make.
No.
You just take a red 20, 30 samples down. Who better get into your factory to show them the facilities and
Yeah.
and the machines and the staff and the designers, isn't it? Like we all do as a kid.
Yeah. Okay. And the key message about repeatability from sample to mass production then, I mean, that's came up time and time again as a key issue. How do
In the UK or
just full stop. They said, you know, going back to the needs, we want to know that the product that we've approved at a sample is going to be the end product, made in the same way, at the same place, using the same materials, and that's what's going to end up in the shop. And that's a big... Sorry.
So I think that what a lot of outer UK suppliers do, go shops, buy whatever they think looks nice, rip the label off, put their own little label on and say, hey,
We're making this.
Yeah, we can produce this for you. When it comes to trying to make it, they can't. But I think a lot of people from the UK, they'll sample with available fabrics,
Yeah.
their own designs, and then they can mass produce it without a problem, unless the customer says, "Oh, that fabric's too expensive."
Yeah.
Let's look at an alternative. But that's when you build your relationship about that particular style, and you know you're not pissing anyone off, then, really, are you?
Yeah. Okay, so you think that need is more addressed to overseas suppliers who are trying to do some things under the radar, so to speak. Okay. Okay. So we're confident that sample quality equals mass production quality over here, and it's not an issue for us.
The same with mass production. It's impossible. One-off sample. It's virtually impossible to make 20,000. It's the same. We all have.
You take more time. You make more time. You take more time on a sample.
Yeah.
The same, design's the same, isn't it? The spec might be slightly
Yeah.
within a tolerance.
But the basics of using the same materials and
I'm quite surprised at that one.
Yeah.
Like Gemma said, if they're walking out buying samples and we tell them their own, then that is a problem. You know,
Yeah.
if you're not doing that.
okay. All right. Well, good. So it sounds to me that that's something that's more associated with overseas production than it is within the UK. But it's a key thing that they were very, very unanimous in their message. We want high quality samples, and the high quality samples have got to be representative of what we get in mass production.
I just wonder if I might just to add to this,
Yeah.
just very quickly, they could have designers just sending in, this is my new design,
Make it, yeah.
and it's only one, so it doesn't necessarily apply to manufacturers.
Okay.
They could be getting designers saying, this is something I've got, and then when they say, yes, I'll have so many thousand of those, that's when the designer has a problem, because they don't necessarily have the backup of the manufacturers. And I could imagine some of these buyers are getting that type of thing put to them.
So going back to your proposition, back to your turnkey, we do the whole thing. That's not a problem for you, is it? Because you're doing the designing and the sampling
Yeah, we can.
right through.
We normally get designers to give us their design and then say we want this fabric. So we'll make the patterns, do the toiles, the samples, source the fabric, the printing,
Yeah.
and then give them their final production.
Okay, so it is exactly
Yeah, but they'll give us the design
right.
normally.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay. Moving to the meeting. When we actually get into the meeting, this is perhaps a bit controversial, but sometimes you've got to send the right people to the meeting. Okay, not necessarily the company owner, skills may trump seniority, or use a combination. I don't know if this is an issue for you, but I see it in the industries I've worked in when they've sent the owner of the business down who's got no people skills, couldn't sell. I don't know. I said it's the wrong phrase, but you just get the people wrong. You know what I mean? You might be telling people how to suck eggs, but if you get into those environments, I'm assuming that you're sending the people that have got the right skills and understand design and how things are made to the meetings. I do see it in other industries where completely inappropriate people turn up at meetings just because they're more senior.
Sometimes I think the mixture works though.
Yeah.
Example from myself.
Yep.
My father started the business 42 years ago, and he used to do all the sales back in the late 70s and the 80s.
Yep.
And now he's in his early 60s. When I have buyers come in, I always introduce them to my dad, and they'll sit there for half an hour, sometimes talking to him, and let him talk about how it used to be, how he's grown the business, how how long the business has been going.
Right.
And they're interested to hear that because
that's interesting. Okay.
They start building a bit of trust. And
Yeah.
thinking, well, these guys aren't just a backstreet sort of they've got this far for a reason.
Yeah.
They've been here this amount of time because of the ethics of the company, the way it's been run, etc.
Yep.
etc. And I think it's important.
Okay. We'll have an interesting discussion in a bullet point in a minute. Going back to the value proposition, so you've now got the meeting, the thing that you're pushing for. You're going to use your full fat value proposition, and you're going to be able to talk detail about the products and services that you've got and the benefits it brings to the people. So you'll be using your detailed value proposition, and you'll be using appropriate tools to communicate it. You've got your samples, you've got your brand books and your visuals and whatever else you might want to take. Anticipate what the retailer is looking for. You'll know that because you've done your homework, as you say you're all doing, and you understand what they're looking for. This is an interesting point because the message that I got coming back from the retailers was, look, it's great that you've been around for 60 years, but that's not really what's important to us anymore. It's all about the future. They're more interested in your short-term history. Great, so you've been trading for X years, fantastic. Last 3 years, you're profitable and all the rest of it. What they're really interested in is your future, because the message coming back to me was, if we're going to invest in a new supplier, they tell me that they're in it for the longer term because the costs of validating that supplier are significant, huge. So they are not just, swapping suppliers day in and day out. I know some of you might challenge that, but the message from the retailers, if we are going to take on a new supplier, the time and effort that goes into validating them is huge as a cost. So we want to know that you're going to be there in the future and that you're sustainable. So it's interesting, your feedback on the history, they might be interested in it, but the message to me was, we're far more interested in what you're doing as a business to make yourself sustainable and make yourself future-proof, which some of the stuff that we've done today might be a nice message to get across. Yes?
Sorry, just out of interest, did they actually put a figure on how much it costs them to validate a new supplier?
As a figure, I'd have to check the report. I can't remember a figure, but 6 to 12 months was the time frame.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, they do an initial, if I talk about the processes, and they're all pretty much the same, they talked about an initial assessment. Yeah, tell us about your company. There's lots of tools on their websites that you can use, and that'll give us an idea if we want to talk to you. From then they start to get people involved in the process and talk about some of the detailed content of these ethical trading manuals that they have. And these are quite thick manuals with all the hoops that you guys have got to jump through. And then they'll talk about pilot orders. So yeah, okay, we're thinking this company looks quite good. We might give them 500 units as initial order. And then if things go well, we'll up the quantities. So the way they explained it to me, it was a 6 to 12 month process and significant investment from them in terms of, factory visits and all the rest of it, and people coming out from buying and technology and all the rest of it to actually validate a supplier. So no hard number, but it sounded to me like quite an expensive operation, which got us into the subject matter of but surely that's got to be cheaper for you to validate people in the UK, hasn't it? And some of them said yes, and you could bring your junior buyers up. Are you going to send your junior buyers to Turkey and to Bangladesh? Oh no, that's far too expensive. Oh, you'd send them to the East Midlands though, wouldn't you? Oh yeah, we'd do that. So we got into some quite interesting dialogue. Would appreciate if everybody could fill in a quick feedback form and give them to Ria. They should be on the table, Ria, are they?
Yes, please.
Only take you a couple of minutes. That would be really good, so we can see what was good and what was not so good on the day. And before we wrap up, has anybody got any final questions that they want to throw at me, or indeed any of your colleagues, before we finish? No? Okay, got off lightly. Okay, well, thanks very much for your attention, everybody. And there is the presentation at 3:30 over in the Cube if you want to hear about the support mechanisms that are available from the LEP. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.